Welcome to Outta Class, for all those lessons you didn't learn in school. Your overall health, fitness and well-being starts with the right mindset and having those meaningful conversations. This is your host, Grant Roberts. Let's get into it.
I'll teach you a lesson now.
Welcome back to the Outta Class Podcast. This is episode 55. Sometimes I forget that I am filming these as well, so I've got to make sure I'm looking at the camera. If you're listening, thanks for joining me, and I hope you are enjoying the episodes, the constant uploads, the consistency. I'm going to try and keep this rolling for as long as possible and dropping every Sunday at this stage. And I hope you like the content that I've been covering and all the topics. Got any recommendations? Let me know and I'll get it done. Not only that, I do have some guest interviews coming up. For those watching along, I have a different mug. I usually have a plain black mug for my coffee or my drink. Today, I actually have a different mug because it was a gift from my grandmother, my beautiful grandmother. And it says, if you know me, this is very relevant. It says, if I knit fast enough, does that count as exercise? So I thought that was a really cool mug that she got me. Obviously, she thought about me when she saw it, and she got it and gave it to me as a gift. If you know where my sense of humor comes from, my mom and my nan, very similar together. All they do is laugh, giggle, make jokes, have like a very dark sense of humor at times, but a lot of fun. So shout out to my nan. Anyway, let's get into today's podcast. Today's podcast, as titled, is about social media and why it is making you unhappy, even useless, and you are ultimately chasing an illusion and you are not as in control as you think you are. This is going to sound a lot like a bit of a conspiracy theorist type episode, but it's not. I guarantee this is definitely down in the avenue of health and fitness and your well-being. So bear with me and hopefully it comes full circle and you get something out of it. A little bit of history on the internet. The internet wasn't around when I was born. So giving you a hint there about how long I've been on the earth. I'm not saying that I am old, but I'm old enough to know when we didn't have smartphones, we didn't have computers. I do remember computers in primary school actually, so I'm not that old. We had like the old Apple Mac box, real big, heavy box computers. We did have computers when I was in primary school. Anyway, I want to talk a bit about historically what the internet was intended for and how it's being used now, and hopefully give you some tools and wrap it up on how you should make use of social media, of the internet, of our constant consumption, and make it more positive and make it more useful for yourself. So early internet, early 1990s, 2000s, it was designed and it was more decentralized. So it was more user controlled, more discovery based, and less manipulated by algorithms, which we'll get into a bit more soon. So you could basically look at the internet in the 1990s, 2000s as an encyclopedia, like a book collection. This might be showing my age now. So in every household in the 80s, 90s, pretty much your parents would have like a bookshelf with an encyclopedia collection on the bookshelf, which sometimes it was in alphabetical order from like A, B, C, D, all the way to X, Y, Z. And you could look up topics in the encyclopedia on all different types of things. And that was basically the internet before the internet. That was Google before Google. You actually had to pick up a book and read it and flick through the pages and find information that you were intrigued about or things that you wanted to learn. Isn't that crazy, kids? Isn't that insane? Anyway, in contrast to today's internet, today's social media, before I go, in contrast actually, early internet was based on things like forums that people made on topics. It was made on self-made blogs and independent websites, RSS feeds, and open web browsing, which means things weren't dictated towards you about what you were going to see. It wasn't as controlled and wasn't as manipulative, I would like to say. So I remember one of my favorite early forums I used to go on. Anybody in the fitness industry who's been around the fitness industry for over 10 years now, maybe 15 years, would remember bodybuilding.com forums, the online forum where you would ask all the questions you needed about training and get all your advice on the internet also. And a lot of it was very, what's the word? A lot of it was very not scientific based information, but you had a lot of jacked bodybuilders on there giving information on meal plans, training splits. It was a lot of anecdotal kind of information, and a lot that we tried over the years through trial and error. And times have certainly changed since then as far as the bodybuilding and health and fitness space. But I would say that a lot of it has remained the same, because a lot of the information on bodybuilding.com was definitely anecdotal and definitely wasn't science-based and definitely wasn't helpful. If anything, a lot of it could have been very unhelpful and very dangerous, just like today's social media society and the trends on social media. So those days, the early 90s, 2000s, in comparison to what we would call modern day social media platforms, as everybody knows now, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, X, formerly known as Twitter, and YouTube, they're more of a walled garden of information. So what do I mean by that? I mean that these 5 that I've mentioned, particularly 3 that I've mentioned, dominate in popularity, which means they have the most users, the most consumers, the most creators, and the most control over the market, which means they have the most control over what you see, what you consume, what you listen to, everything, all the information that you get, particularly comes off TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook, and Twitter. And a fun fact about those first 2, I'm going to throw another one in there also, but those first 2, Instagram and Facebook, are actually owned by the same company. So people might still think that they are separate apps or separate companies. In a way, they're branded separately, but they're run by the same machine, the same people. Instagram and Facebook is owned by Facebook, which is now known as Meta. You would have heard of the Meta glasses, I'm sure, and the Meta company. Instagram and Facebook is run by that. And they also own WhatsApp. WhatsApp is one of the biggest messenger platforms and most used in the world also. So those 3 huge social media platforms or connective platforms are owned by the same company. Just for context later on, keep that in mind. And also you've obviously got Twitter, YouTube, and TikTok. TikTok for me, haven't been on it, to be honest. It doesn't interest me for many reasons, which you will find out as we go along. But I'm definitely not a fan of TikTok. I'm really not a fan of social media, to be honest, which might sound shocking, but hopefully to give you some context later on, you understand why. So users used to actively choose. What I'm trying to say is users used to actively choose what they consumed, whereas now algorithms heavily decide what people see, what people think, and what people do ultimately as a result of consuming this information. And one of the biggest problems, if you are just consumed completely by these apps, you're on it 24/7, every day, is that you still have a false belief that you are in control over what you consume. Like, look at the stat I just gave you, the fact I just gave you, that the 3, some of the biggest or the most used apps and social media platforms are owned by the same company. So who's deciding what you watch, what you see, and what you ultimately feel? It's one company, a small group of people dictating what you see and what you do. As much as you have those controller functions, you can search things, you can scroll past things, you have the ability to switch off per se, you're actually not in as much control as you think, if any, unconsciously. I'm not going to get too deep with this. I'm just reeling off my thoughts as I go along with the points that I've noted. So algorithms these days, an algorithm is basically how your feed is set up and what dictates what you're going to see on your feed. And as funny comments you see sometimes under posts where people say, yes, Instagram, this is what I'm interested in. So basically trying to tell the algorithm this is more of what they want to see, and a lot of it is deep and dark in the trenches of social media, things you probably wouldn't want to consume all the time. But I'll give some more examples of that as we go along. So these algorithms, or the settings that are set up, basically get trained by your engagement. So things that you like, things that you comment on, things that you view the most, those algorithms are designed to push more and more and more to you, for you to continue to scroll, to continue to use these applications, and ultimately be addicted without even realizing it. So the major points on social media algorithms are that they are designed to primarily maximize attention. So your attention right now, they want you looking at it all the time. Maximize time on the platform. So your attention, the time you spend on these platforms, increase advertising revenue, because at the end of the day, it is all about money, of course. Why would you design these apps if you couldn't make money off them, especially these big companies, the owners of these companies? Why would they own something so huge with millions and millions of users without making money off those users? And then also to drive engagement, which again, engagement is just your eyes and your ears focused on these apps and this information. So you've got to think about these things as we go along. So maximizing attention, time on the platform, revenue, and driving engagement. All these back to the same thing, because attention these days is money and it is control. Now, what types of things will these apps be sending to you or feeding you in order to keep you engaged, keep you on these platforms and scrolling all the time? The things that the studies show and evidence shows that things that perform well, the things that perform the best, get the most views, the most attention, are things like outrage performs well, fear performs great, tribal conflict performs well, and emotional content spreads faster. So let me give some quick examples of that. Outrage would be something like somebody doing something that is maybe racist, or something that is violent, or something that gets a reaction out of people, gets a very hostile or aggressive and angry reaction out of somebody, is obviously going to perform well, because people are going to comment, people are going to share these videos, they're going to share this content with millions of other people. That's going to perform well. And what does that do? It drives up ad revenue, it drives up people using the apps, sharing the apps, and consumption overall. Fear performs well. Just look at mainstream media for this. I want you, next time you're watching the news, count how many good news stories there are in comparison to things like knife crime or disasters or plane crashes or deaths. Count the differences between happy stories, things that make you feel good, and fear stories or negative stories. And that'll be a great example just there. But scroll through your feed as well. I'm sure they're very much the same, unless you are very in control of your algorithm, which, as much as you try to be, you can't fully be. Tribal conflicts, good one. I'm not going to go into depth with this because I don't talk about these things too much. Politics being one religion the other. Two very, very common ways to create tribal conflict or belief conflict and create arguments, which again creates consumption and it creates engagement. And then emotional content. There is a happy side of emotional content, but also there is very detrimental, negative, and sad types of emotional content. Two good examples. One, emotional content, looking at puppies, looking at cat videos, looking at things that are, a dog gets adopted, for example. It's an abused dog in the street, and then you see somebody take it in off the street. It's scared, it gets fed, and eventually becomes this amazing, looked after, pampered, really happy dog. I love those videos personally, but they are a great way to create engagement and create attention and create those shares and get as many people watching and sharing it as possible. And then also emotional charged content on a negative side, like I said, would be things like the war, different wars that are going on, protests, people fighting each other, violence is huge, sexual content is huge. Things that bring what you would call negative emotions obviously do well on these feeds. So these are all things you need to take into account. You should actually stop and think about the way you're using social media and how it is affecting your overall health and well-being, your mindset, your day-to-day productivity, all these sorts of things. This is why I'm covering this topic, because it is so relevant in today's society and how we are. So these platforms, with those things they know that perform well, as I covered, naturally amplify or feed into your algorithm, polarizing content, addictive scrolling, and emotionally charged material. So anything that's going to keep you emotional, keep you addicted to want to see more and more and stay informed on what's going on, or share things to your friends and your family and groups that you're in, that's what the algorithm is going to do. That's what the platform is naturally going to spread to you, to spread to everybody else. On the flip side of that, and I've covered this many times, I think I discussed this in an episode not long ago, where valuable information, educational information, even truth, you could say, and healthy content doesn't do very well on these platforms. And for reasons that I just mentioned, it doesn't perform very well. It doesn't cause outrage. Somebody talking about how to live a healthy lifestyle or telling you to switch off from social media like I am. I'm not telling you to switch off. I'm just trying to help you use the platforms and the tools that we have in today's society better to improve your health and well-being. But these things don't do well. I shared a comparison on my Instagram story a while ago where I show when I do an educational video on, I think it was on supplements, I did one on talking about what supplements are worth having, what ones aren't. I talked a bit about social media in general and deciphering fact from fiction. I went for about a minute and a half. Got probably like 200 views out of my thousands of followers. And then a 10-second video, a comedy type video that I did a few years back, went viral and got hundreds of thousands of views, shares, engagement, comments. And it was basically a 10-second video, just about nothing really. It was basically a situation where, it was titled, "Your coach said you can have one chocolate," and I pull out this huge Toblerone chocolate, like saying you can only have one chocolate. And that simply 10-second video doing that, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of views, because created engagement, created an emotion, it was funny, and people shared it. At the end of the day, it had no value whatsoever as far as its education goes, as far as healthy content, anything that's you're going to learn from. It was nothing special, but it created an emotion, it created a reaction, and it got attention, and the algorithm pushed it to the top. What did it do for anybody other than a quick laugh? Absolutely nothing, to be honest. Did I like the engagement? Did it help? Yes, it did. It got me a heap more followers. It got me a heap more engagement, different things. But it's still, for me, a bit disappointing that something like that gets that much engagement, and I provide long form content like this with what I believe is educational and informative, and it gets nothing. It's basically hidden in the depths of social media. So all the above points that I made, it ties into the idea that the algorithm gives people more of what keeps them engaged, not necessarily what is good for them, which I just talked about before. These big companies, I'm going to sound like a conspiracy theorist again, but these big companies, these big businesses don't give a fuck about your health or what is good for you. Because if they did, they would be pushing all the things that are good for you to the top, wouldn't they? Now, I want to go into a few facts, a few different things that I found while looking at this topic in particular. And I've always been somebody who looks from the outside in with these topics. I never take something for face value without asking questions. That's just how I am. And I think it's a great skill you can have. Never take something for face value or as fact without doing your homework and actually finding out if something is real or not, or getting the facts and what is truthful. That's probably one of the main messages I'm talking about or trying to get across with this podcast anyway. But data, I found this very interesting, and I heard of a book which I actually haven't read yet, but I've referenced a few times, and I've got a heap of the main information out of it. So I pinpicked some information out of this book, which I'm going to listen to probably next week. I'm going to listen to this book. I'll put pressure on myself to read it now, but it's called The Coddling of the American Mind. You can listen to it on audiobook, which I probably will. And the core data patterns highlighted in this book include depression and anxiety rates in teens began rising sharply around 2011, 2012, which is in correlation with these social media apps, things like Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all these. There was clear correlation between rises in depression and anxiety rates in teens during those times. Is it coincidence? I mean, it could be argued that it is, but a lot of the data is pointing towards it being completely correlated with social media and the rise of social media. And interestingly as well, I wouldn't say interestingly from my point of view, but the increases were very much larger in girls than boys. I can safely say, I mean, it probably is evening out now, but especially when social media started, the pressure on females was already high to look and be a certain way. But with social media, like, it just was blown out of proportion. You can see why girl self-esteem, that their emotions, the things that they're comparing themselves with are so unrealistic and so unachievable and not real that, of course, it's going to cause depression and self-worth issues. And the timing closely matched widespread smartphone adoption and heavy social media use, especially image-based platforms like Instagram, as I said. Comparison is the thief of all joy. I'll say that over and over and over again, and this is a perfect example of why social media can be so detrimental if it is not used in the right way, and if you're not trained or you don't have the mindset in order to get yourself or dig yourself out of those trenches and remind yourself that this isn't real life. The things that you are getting fed like this aren't natural. It's not normal to be consuming this much information and have this much comparison with this many people around you. I think there's another statistic there that I will share on this also. But some major statistics and correlations discussed in the book are, this is among US teens, but there is an Australian statistic here as well. Rates of major depressive episodes roughly doubled from about 8% in 2009 to around 17% in 2020. And the increase was strongest in adolescent girls, as mentioned. Depressive symptoms in girls. A commonly cited study in the book showed that depressive symptoms among teens increased about 33% between 2010 and 2015. And I'm not sure if I can say this word, but it is very concerning. I'll use the word unalivings. Hopefully you understand what I'm saying here. During the same period, the unaliving rates for girls aged 12 to 17 rose about 65%, which is unbelievable, shocking, and really concerning, and without without a better word to use, very depressing for sure. So there's some stats there. A little stat from Australia as well. I had here. Yeah, one Australian linked finding mentioned in later related research that girls showed increased depressive symptoms with as little as 1 hour a day of higher screen exposure. So simply an hour a day, especially with the flood of information like I've covered now, can have heightened risks of depressive feelings and even more serious mental health issues. So something to think about. And if you have kids, this might be something to talk about with them, even though we like to say they don't listen to us. Just having those conversations could add value. Even this podcast, maybe some points that I cover in this podcast might help you have the discussion with your kids and just remind them of these things and what social media actually is and how it is designed. Dogs barking again. I feel like every time I record a podcast, the dog next door starts barking, but I'm dealing with it now. Now, the recommendation is that algorithms shape culture. So it's much bigger than what you see, because if you're seeing it, it means millions of other people will be seeing the same thing as well, having the same feelings, same thoughts, and same reactions to these algorithms and things that we are fed. So systems like this influence political opinions, social trends, beauty standards, masculinity, fitness culture, and news exposure. So you can probably already think of examples of those points that I just made. Things like political opinions are obviously going to cause divide. They say if you don't want to get in an argument, don't talk about politics and don't talk about religion with anybody, because you're always going to find somebody to disagree, and people are quite passionate about these topics, and there's no winner when you start to get divisive in those things. Social trends. TikTok, a very good example. I see it on Instagram, even though I don't use TikTok, but have those TikTok dances. As soon as a new trend comes out, people are making dances. Clothing, very influencer driven, very celebrity driven trends as far as clothing goes, as far as songs go. Beauty standards, as I touched on before, correlation between social media and the app format on phones and smartphones. Beauty standards and looks and different things would have a lot of pressure on females in particular, definitely males now as well, as far as the fitness culture goes. I know for sure I have to kick myself and pinch myself at certain times and remind myself I'm not comparing myself to other people, and chances are they don't even look like that in real life. And even if they do, who gives a shit? It's got nothing to do with me. I'm just going to concentrate on myself, my goals, and being the best version of myself. News exposure. Like I said before, look at social media. Anytime, have a look at it and count up the amount of feel-good stories compared to negative, detrimental, fear-mongering stories. Same on social media. Luckily, on social media, you can choose to follow certain news platforms or not. I tend just to follow them just to troll them. I tend to get a lot of thousands of likes when I troll the mainstream media news platforms, which I enjoy doing just for a bit of fun, because I don't feed into the bullshit as much as possible. And I'm not saying I'm not guilty of any of these things. I'm not saying I haven't been a victim of this. I'm not saying I don't use social media excessively, which I'll get into later on. But I am saying that luckily now, And for me and a lot of people my age, I grew up in a time when there wasn't social media. We didn't have smartphones. We didn't have a screen in front of us all the time. So I know what life is like before these things were the norm. Before you saw kids in strollers with iPads and smartphones, just having constant stimulation and being entertained 24/7. I remember just getting on my bike and going for a ride, not knowing where all my friends were, or just looking for something to do, looking for things to do, going out, playing sport and cruising around the neighborhood with my friends. Probably got in a little bit more trouble than a lot of kids do these days, but learned a lot of lessons and had made some of the best memories ever without a screen, without needing to put it on an Instagram or TikTok, something like that. Now, this is where I want to talk about even myself becoming a victim of bots and fake accounts and different things. So this is more so on that part of things. So um, coordinated manipulation online, fake engagement, bot amplification, political propaganda, influence campaigns, AI generated content. So a lot of the comments and things you see online aren't actually real people. I wish I had got this statistic. I heard it on the Joe Rogan podcast a few times, but if there's a stat somewhere, I think it came out of, I think it was Russia. I think it was a country like that where I can't remember the amount, but the large amount, the large percentage of comments and accounts commenting on things, posting content, and getting your attention overall were bot accounts. So actually robotic fake accounts producing engagement and rage bait type comments and arguing with people online. A lot of the time, these comments and these profiles and these people aren't even real people, which is pretty concerning and pretty crazy. And even worse than that is the fact that it's becoming so hard to tell what is real and what is organic, or in comparison to what is manipulated and what is fake. And a little example for you here. This is only probably a year ago now, I reckon. I was in an online argument with somebody in the comments on a health and fitness page. Somebody posted and I put a comment there just giving my opinion. And then I got a response back. I should have known straight away. It was one of those profiles that has like no picture. It's like a grey head with the white background behind it. And they had this big spiel, rebutting the points that I made and personally attacking me and this sort of things. And I got all worked up and I was going back and forth with this person unintentionally or unconsciously. And then I got to a point where I was like, hold on a minute, what am I doing? Like, for starters, this person, I went to their profile. I don't know why I didn't do this at the start. I went to their profile and it was like a bot account following thousands and thousands of people. And they had no posts, nothing. It was quite clearly a bot account or a fake account, just put their design to start arguments and keep people engaged on social media. And I was a victim of that. Stupidly, I engaged with it and got sucked into the game. And I learned from that pretty quick that I actually hesitate these days to comment on different people's posts and things. I don't really spend my time doing it unless I want to troll myself in a good way. I don't troll people for negative reasons to bully anybody or anything like that. It's more so I like to call out a lot of mainstream media bullshit and just tell it how it is more than anything, and keep people thinking in a different way and thinking from themselves, I suppose. Other concerns with bots and AI things are the psychological effects of social media. Again, doom scrolling, addiction, mental health impacts, outrage cycles, and manipulated narratives. And I've already covered these things. I'm not going to go into them too much, but these are all the things you have to keep into account when being on social media. So with that, we can talk about... I want these podcasts to be helpful. So I basically wanted to do this podcast to give you ways to use social media more positively and at less detriment for yourself, because a point was made a while ago. I was listening to a podcast and they said we're not even equipped. If you look at humans biologically, how long social media has been around, even computers and technology like this, if you have a look at how long it has been around, we can't possibly be psychologically equipped to deal with algorithmically optimized media systems operating 24/7. We are not designed to be on screens 24/7 and stimulated 24/7 with an overload of information from the whole world. I remember quickly a statistic or somebody brought up the fact that biologically and even tribally, like as humans, human nature, we are only really designed to be in groups of 150 people max, where we can actually communicate effectively and live civilly. There's statistics out there. You can Google it. I could probably Google it now and have a look at it, but there is data that shows outside of 150 people in your circle of or community, things just become white noise. They become unproductive and become very unnatural as far as personal connection and relationships and values and things go. So that might be something to look up while I'm talking about this, or have a look after this podcast about that. I might look it up soon. I won't cover it now because I'm mindful of time. But I wanted to go through now 5 ways to limit time on social media, or possibly eradicate it where you can. But more importantly, make it a positive experience overall for your health and well-being. And before I give my 5 points on this, one of the best books I read on social media and the use of it and how to limit it and take back control of your social media use and your health and well-being is a book called Stolen Focus by Johan Hari. That is Stolen Focus by Johan Hari. Highly recommended. I love this book. I actually read this book in lockdown and it helped a lot because we didn't have many things we could do. We were trapped inside for so long. So social media use and being online, we started with Zoom meetings and Teams meetings, and everything went online. So it was a good way to switch off and really dial myself back into not overusing social media, or at the very least trying to use it in a positive way and give value to people. And I want to say this now also, while I'm recording this for Spotify, for YouTube, I'm putting it on my social media, I don't want to be a hypocrite why I'm talking about these things, because half the people listening to this are probably thinking, but you're on social media every single day. I see you post every single day on your stories, working out and sharing things. Yes. But why do I use it? Yes, I use social media, particularly Instagram, excessively because I run an online business on the app and I actually get paid due to the use of it. If I didn't have an online business, I wouldn't have any social media at all. So keep that in mind. You have to think to yourself, well, what are you getting out of it? What are you getting out of social media? And what is its value to you? If you're not getting anything out of it positively, then what are you doing on social media? I deleted my Facebook account about a week ago now, because it was just, I was like, hold on, why do I even have Facebook? I had it because I had a Facebook Messenger group with my close family, because we were going through some family issues and catching up with each other. I had my grandfather's funeral a couple of weeks back and we were sharing memories and different things. So it was great for that, but I thought, I've got all the contacts I need here without needing Facebook. And if I want the photos and different things shared, I can organize that without needing Facebook. So I simply deleted it. So the only social media platform I am on is Instagram, and that's because I create more than I consume, which I'm going to talk about at the end. But let's get into the five 5 ways I believe that will help you with your social media use and things to remember. Number 1, choose education over entertainment as much as possible. So opt for things that are going to teach you things that you are passionate about, and things that can help you exceed in something you're passionate about. It might be your work, it might be your hobbies. Opt for things like documentaries and real life podcasts, or things that you ultimately have a passion for. In that point, clean up your algorithm and your feeds as much as you can. If you're on Facebook and all you are seeing is toxic people arguing on Facebook, or telling you what they ate, or complaining, then what is that doing to your mental health? How is that helping you in any way whatsoever? So clean up your feed as much as you can. Block people if you need to, and switch off. Number 2, realistically, you should only have one social media app on your phone. Count how many you have now. I guarantee the average young person in their teens, mid-20s, I shouldn't even categorize this age-wise, because it's probably most people these days probably have Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. At least those 4, majority of people would have on their phone. And that's not even counting things like your WhatsApp, your Teams, all these other apps that you can have. It's not even including them. I guarantee those 4, 90% of people probably have on their phone. Now for me, I have Instagram. That is all. I have the YouTube app also, but that is more so I can create this content, upload it, monitor it on my phone as needed. Number 3, have a routine and time schedule for social media like everything else. I use this classic example all the time when it comes to people saying they don't have time to get to the gym, they don't have time to meal prep. Check your screen time, and I guarantee you do. You couldn't get to the gym today, but you spent 6 hours on social media or on your phone. You didn't have time to cook, but you watched a Netflix series. You watched a whole Netflix series over the weekend, but you didn't have time to cook. Exactly. Number 4, block pages immediately that trigger negative emotions for you. Why are you still watching something if something's upsetting you or something's making you feel in a way that's detrimental to you? It's affecting your mental health, your physical health, then simply block it. There's things you can do. You literally have it in your hands to be able to block these pages straight away, and ensure that you're not seeing these things over and over again. Simple as that. And number 5, put your phone on silent or do not disturb. Turn off notifications, or even have a day during the week where you don't log on to social media at all. If you can help it, don't even use your phone for the day. Turn off all your notifications to your apps at least once a week. And I do this. I've got friends, and my friends are probably listening to this also and thinking, you send me reels all the time. You're always sending reels back and forth to me. Yeah, I do, but I do it within reason. I'm not up at midnight, 1 a.m. sending reels and doom scrolling. I'm asleep. My phone's off. It's on silent. I'll catch those reels and things in the morning. But even with that, I have a select amount of friends that will send me reels. So it's very, very controlled. I ignore so many DMs, so many messages from different people, because it's all garbage and I don't have time for it. So think about that. Think about the amount of people you allow to take up your time. Do they deserve it? And are you using your time productively, watching all these things and even looking for things to send to people? A lot of the time, the reels and things you send to people show how you are using your time. So think about that also. And the last point I wanted to make here from this podcast is create and innovate more than you consume. I guarantee I spend a 90%, 10% split on creating content and trying to create value in the world than I do consuming information. And a lot of the time, if I am consuming information, it is based on getting things that I can then use to create and innovate more information and more valuable things for society and the world. So I won't go into anything else in this podcast. I think I've covered it as much as I wanted to, but I just hope there's some points in here and things that make you think about your use on social media and how you can use it. I'm not saying it, I don't want this podcast to sound like social media is like the devil, it's the worst thing in the world for anybody. It depends on how you use anything and the information and the controls that you take, because it is an amazing thing. Like, I can put this video up when I upload it and it can get to potentially millions of people can see this information that I'm sharing. I'm sharing things that I believe make value, and that's the magic of social media. This is how it should be used. So think about that. I guess that's what I am trying to say. I'm not going to ramble on anymore, as I always say on these podcasts, but I hope the information that I provided to you is valuable as always, and you got something out of this and you can share it with others, and hopefully they get something out of it also. But I really appreciate you taking the time to listen to my podcast or watch them. Please share them if you find them valuable. And I'm not going to take any longer. I just want to say I really appreciate you taking the time to listen. And I'm glad with the feedback that I have got that people are getting some value out of these podcasts and enjoying the process as we go along. I do have some guests lined up, so you won't just have to listen to my boring voice or see my mug by itself. I do have some really cool interviews coming up and some discussions with some special guests, so stay tuned for those as the episodes keep rolling. As always, thanks for listening. If you did enjoy it, tag me, share it on Instagram at GrantRobertsPT, and I'll see you in the next episode. Take care. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed today's podcast and found it helpful, share it on your Instagram story, and don't forget to tag me at GrantRobertsPT.